In a tree by the brook, a songbird sings, from great folly unto a muddy death. Hey, nonny, nonny, fetch the gold ring, relinquished to the nymphs in one final breath. Fantastic garlands, weeping streams galore. Oft does men dredge the swamps in the night, the sepluchre raising unto the moors. Blame ye the fool, folly's his fateful right. Aye, true, young men will do it if they come to it. He's dead and gone, by God they are to blame. She gleams, nods, keens a melancholy tune. Oh, only men bleed, alack, fee for shame. By the piper's hymn, he'd swear to have sung. Fortune's churchbells have only just begun. Jeremy Bentham never built his panopticon. It was merely an idea, a drawing, a circle of cells surrounding a central tower, each prisoner visible at all times, those surveilling invisible themselves. The genius of it all, the horror, is that it is no matter whether anyone is truly watching, for the prisoner watches himself, and he, in all due time, becomes his own jailer. Michel Foucault called this disciplinary power. The moment surveillance stops being a thing done to you, and becomes an act that you instill upon yourself with as much duty as those who initially ingrained it within you. Foucault describes the effect remarkably well in asserting and giving light to the fact that the panopticon brings forth a self-sustaining system whereby the guards create a sort of domino effect within the collective of those imprisoned till said prisoners are the bearers of their own suffering.
L'effet majeur du panoptique, induire chez les détenus un état conscient et permanent de visibilité qui assure le fonctionnement automatique du pouvoir, faire que la surveillance soit permanente dans ses effets, même si elle est discontinue dans son action, que la perfection du pouvoir tende à rendre inutile l'actualité de son exercice, que cet appareil architectural soit une machine à créer et à soutenir un rapport de pouvoir indépendant de celui qui l'exerce. Bref, que les détenus soient pris dans une situation de pouvoir dont ils sont eux-mêmes les porteurs.
Foucault describes a world in which many of a particular time inhabit. People which inhabit an entirely different space from the Western construction of the panopticon in some ways, and build a new, more fearful one in both psychological terms, experience, and physical construction all the same. Two Russian writers, one before Stalin's machine was fully assembled, and another writing inside its very wreckage, looked at Bentham's blueprints and recognized within them something their century was building at a grander scale. Grand, perhaps, is not the right word. In a more vicious and a more devastating scale is perhaps more accurate. Yevgeny Zamyatin's We, written in 1920, gave it glass walls and a name, the One State. Alexander Solzhenitsyn's One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich, published in 1962, gave it a different name, the Here and Now. We inhabit it, and yet we hardly know it. If it so happens that we do we resist? Do we care for the outside world, for an escape? Or is that fruitless trek altogether proven in vain, and do we prefer the comfort of these very walls, lean on them perhaps for balance, for structure and safety, because we've forgotten all else? Zamyatin's first subversion is architectural. In the One State, the walls are of glass, those of every house. In fact, the world is a city of glass. There's no
escape from the watchful eye of the state except when it comes time to drop the curtain for the hour of sensual escapades. What proves of interest is that Bantham's panopticon typically requires an inspector, a human presence in the tower, a guard, or at least the possibility of one. Zamyatin's one state abolishes that need. When your walls are transparent, the entire city becomes the tower. Every citizen, your neighbor, co-worker, friend, there is no escape from the stalk, the hunt of the mutually watchful eye. To every person you gaze upon, a pair of eyes gazes upon you also. D503, our narrator, is a mathematician and believer in every sense. At first, he doesn't experience the glass as surveillance. He experiences it as a mathematical beauty, order, perfection. The elimination of the shameful, the private, the irrational, the intrinsically human. D503 asserts: человек перестал быть диким человеком только тогда, когда мы построили зеленую стену, когда мы этой стеной изолировали свои машины от неразумного, безобразного мира деревьев, птиц, животных. He means it as a condemnation. Men's fall from the great heights of heaven and paradise and unto the earth, unto all that is perfect. A world created as a result of man's irrationalities, faults, and flaws. The one state is an Eden without sin, or so D503 believes. There is no serpent, no forbidden fruit, no knowledge that wounds, no mathematical errors or mistakes. There is only the table, the glass, the benefactor's benevolent eye. D503 is Adam in a garden before the fall, before his sin, before that great mistake that brings God's wrath. And when it comes, it has the shape of a woman. I-330 is the serpent, the fruit and knowledge, all in one. She takes D to the ancient house, not made of glass, a place of private darkness. She provides him with alcohol. She makes him feel things that the table cannot schedule, cannot describe, cannot lay out, cannot predict. She gives him, in other words, interiority. The biblical parallel is structural, not incidental. In Genesis, the fall is not simply disobedience, it is the acquisition of self-awareness and knowledge. Your eyes will be opened, the serpent promises, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. What is lost in the fall is not merely happiness, but innocence, selfhood, and ignorance of the world around you, and that in which you live. And so D falls. He begins to write I where the grammar of the one state insists on we. He falls into the terrifying paradise of individuality. And like Adam, he will be expelled. Not from the garden, but from himself. The one state performs the operation that removes his entire capacity for imagination. It is Eden, paradise, as surgery. Within that surgery is a supposed freedom. A lobotomy as erasure. They return him from whence he came. There is no escape. With we is an inversion of Genesis. The one state is thereby deemed some kind of paradise. As it turns out, it's the hellish place whereby the external, human-ridden world, void of the great benefactor's control, is, in fact, rather the true paradise. Zamyatin thereby holds quite the blasphemous take. It is not merely Soviet society that he critiques here. He's questioning the very structure of Christianity, whereby God is not quite so the benevolent figure we think he is, but rather quite self-serving. He bars man from continuing onto the path toward immortality by exiling Adam and Eve from the garden before they can eat from the tree of life. What most would thus conclude is that I-330 is Eve, that she is temptation, seduction, acting on behalf of the serpent,
However, once we bring in the fact that she acts on Nephi's behalf, that the trail leads back to Mephistopheles, purveyor of Faust's knowledge, yet damnation, the line becomes much blurrier between what it truly is, good versus evil. For Mephistopheles acts as a playful figure, a trickster, a liminal figure, a demon. He's not evil itself, but he opens the door toward it. He suggests it. He offers it. And so does I-330. Mephistopheles, however, provides a clear damnation to Faust. With I-330, she rather offers freedom and salvation, again an inversion of the literary and biblical canon. Is it worth taking that step, transgressing for the sake of a taste of the forbidden fruit, if the result is man's fall and eternal trek back to paradise? D503 never finds an answer. It's up to the reader to determine that for themselves, whether freedom is worth pursuing even, when the story has written itself and one is doomed from the start. And it is here that the Grand Inquisitor enters. In Dostoevsky's Brothers Karamazov, Ivan tells his brother Alyosha a story. Christ returns to Seville during the Inquisition and is arrested. The Grand Inquisitor, of a withered and gaunt-looking disposition with deeply sunken eyes, visits Christ's cell and delivers what is arguably the most devastating speech in world literature. Simply put, and to summarize, he states to Christ, "You've made a mistake. When Satan offered you the 3 temptations in the desert, bread, miracle, earthly power, you refused all 3. You gave humanity freedom. But humanity, the Inquisitor says, cannot bear freedom. It bears too much weight. It makes for misery." Zamyatin clearly drew from this literary tradition, be it in the simply biblical sense or by continuing Dostoevsky's line of thought. «А какой же ты хочешь последнюю революцию?» «Последний? Нет. Революции бесконечны. Последние — это для детей. Дети — бесконечность. Пугает, а необходимо, чтобы дети спокойно спали ночью». A revolution, irrational and worthy of fear, yes, but not altogether fully aligned with Trotsky's idea that the Bolsheviks would bring forth the revolution to end all revolutions. Here, the benefactor acknowledges himself and that the one state shall not last. It's Yeats's widening gyre. Things shall fall apart. The center cannot hold. It's Lady Fortune's wheel, it's that of fate and the cycles of humanity that are doomed to repeat themselves. The benefactor knows he's playing God, yet he's doing it all the same. The benefactor is the Grand Inquisitor's logical endpoint. He has solved the problem of freedom by eliminating it entirely, and he has done so with great benevolence toward his people. The numbers vote for him year by year. They vote freely, unanimously, for their own very subjugation. The Inquisitor would recognize this system and go so far as to call it mercy, where Dostoevsky's Inquisitor offers bread as metaphor, freedom surrendered for security. Zamyatin literalizes it into the geometry of the one state. D503 lives by the table of hours. Every meal, every walk, every sex day is scheduled, sanctioned, recorded. The bread is guaranteed. Freedom is the price. Where Zamyatin gives us allegory, Solzhenitsyn gives us something far more deceivingly subtle and simple. One day in the life of Ivan Denisovich covers a single day in a Siberian labor camp from the pre-dawn head count to the evening, a span of roughly 18 hours.
It is ordinary in every sense in that it mirrors every other day Zhukov has ever spent in the camp. Nothing especially terrible happens, he doesn't die. He gets a slightly larger portion of gruel, he feels at the end almost lucky. The text itself even goes so far as to mimic this ordinariness. It is void of particularly any detailed personal memories or true authenticity on Zhukov's part. The text is constructed like Zhukov's wall, of mandated materials that are built in the same way, void of any individuality, bare bones, that have no intention of doing anything other than serving as the barrier they are meant to be. This is Solzhenitsyn's panopticon, not Bentham's literal one in every sense, but a psychological one. Not zamyatin's glass, but a place of snow. The head count is everything. It happens twice, 3 times, 5 times a day. The guards numbering the prisoners like livestock. Prisoners standing motionless in the cold until the numbers satisfy the state. The camp does not operate through individual surveillance, it operates through enumeration. You're counted. You are a number. The crime of Bentham's tower is replicated not by a camera, but by arithmetic. The more disturbing thing here, however, is that Zhukov has internalized it in the way that Foucault himself revealed the very danger of the panopticon. Take Zhukov with his daily bread, the great kindness bestowed upon him, determined by his gang's completion of work and his own separate resourcefulness. Zhukov hoards it, measures it, weighs it with his eye, hides it in the mattress, retrieves it, and counts it before sleep. The ration, the small, dense, calorie-efficient slab of camp bread, has become the organizing principle of his consciousness. He doesn't consider freedom. He thinks about whether the bread was short-weighed. He's not thinking about this because he is broken, however. He is thinking about this because it is for him survival as a form of mastery. He has made himself the expert of his own imprisonment. Zhukov's relationship with bread is theological. The Lord's Prayer in Russian, Хлеб наш насущный дашь нам днес, asks for daily bread. Насущный, essential, necessary, of this day, not tomorrow's bread, not stored or saved bread, the bread of this very present moment. Ask for daily because daily is all the future a prayer can carry, let alone envision. Zhukov's bread is насущный in its most literal stripped form. He never thinks past today's ration. The camp has taught him through years of repetition that tomorrow's bread is a categorical error. There's only this bread right now, and whether it is enough. The Grand Inquisitor offered bread as the price of freedom. Dostoevsky's Inquisitor was speaking metaphorically. Bread is security, is order, is comfort and being told what to do. But Solzhenitsyn materializes the metaphor into actual grip. Zhukov has made the trade. He did not choose to make it. The trade was made for him, by the state, by the sentence, by the geography of Siberia. And now he has become so fluent in the language of the trade that he mistakes competence for contentment. You mustn't pray for that. Alyosha was horror-struck. What you want your freedom for? What faith you have left will be choked in thorns. Rejoice that you are in prison. Here you can think of your soul. In this moment, Alyosha offers the most out-of-pocket perspective in the entire gulag. To the Grand Inquisitor, the prison is a tool of order. To Zhukov, it is a place of physical survival. But to Alyosha, the panopticon is a gift. He argues that the outside world, the one D503 falls into and Zhukov fears, is actually the real prison because it's filled with thorns that choke the soul. Here is the ultimate inversion of Bentham's tower. The panopticon is designed to make you watch yourself. Alyosha uses that constant self-observation as a spiritual discipline. He accepts the permanent state of visibility because he believes he is being watched not by a guard but by God. By stripping away the distractions of freedom, this state has inadvertently created a space where the eye can focus entirely on the eternal. That is a terrifying paradox that the most restrictive man in the camp is the only one who feels he has the space to breathe. Shulkov looked up at the ceiling and said nothing. He didn't know any longer himself whether he wanted freedom or not. He understood that they might let you out, but they never let you home. And he didn't really know whether he'd be better off at home or here. This is the most devastating failure of the modern world possible. We like to imagine that the panopticon is a corrective facility, a place designed to monitor persons until they are fit to return to the outside. But Solzhenitsyn reveals something darker. The panopticon is not built for re-assimilation. It is a world unto itself. For Shulkov, the outside has become a ghost myth that requires more energy to believe in than it does to simply survive fully. When he looks at the ceiling and says nothing, he's acknowledging that the state has just captured the time that it has colonized the defensive home. The surveillance of the head count has become the only structure he understands to leave the panopticon means enter a different kind of void, one without the comfort of mandated bread and certain walls. The tragedy is not that he is barred from the world, but that the world has been made uninhabitable for a man who has learned only the language of the cage. Zamyatin and Solzhenitsyn are not making the same argument. Zamyatin writes on the cusp of the Soviet regime's humble beginnings, and his book is a warning in the form of a nightmare. Solzhenitsyn writes inside the full-blown world of the actualized, survived, and it is not far off, dystopian or unimaginable. His book is a simple testimony in the form of an ordinary weekday. He's lived it himself. But both are responding to the same bargain. Both are measuring the same cost. Both are asking when the state has taken everything, the walls, the name, the future, the bread, what is left that is still irreducibly a self? And what remains of our purpose? Zamyatin's answer is bleak, the imagination, and they will come for it. Solzhenitsyn's answer is quieter, maybe more digestible. Ironic, given the subject matter. The body's small expertise, the knowledge of how to travel mortar correctly, the weight of bread in a hand that knows it, the private arithmetic of survival. In the end, the panopticon requires you to watch yourself. What neither Bentham nor the benefactor nor the camp guard could fully calculate is what happens in the part of the self that refuses to be the watcher, the part that keeps in secret a crust of bread or a word, or an eye where the grammar says we. The matter lies in what one does when you can certainly resist against the one state or the camp, but to what degree? On the one hand, D503's resistance leads to a fate of inevitable damnation, but is Shulkov's so-called complicity equally preferable? There is no true right or wrong. The panopticon calls rather. It appears for a recognition and realization and a sense of acceptance of one's fate all the same. Fortune's wheel goes round and round. Whose gyre history and violence goes round all the same. All of that is inevitable, but that does not deem living freely and for the self out of the question. We dream and love and pursue excess not out of simple resistance, but a realization that it perhaps is worth it in every sense. Aren't we all fortune's fool, rutting and furrowing our way into the wheeled strumpet? Oh, 'tis most true. She beckons us closer, mastering all us men. Out, out, thou strumpet fortune. All ye merry gentlemen, rid her of the blessed boom, whereby the spokes and fellies will so dutifully refrain from bringing forth any more of her flying fancies.
Time out of mind, the fairies' coachmakers be damned. And the little great gallant knave drifts downwards unto the barred gates of that here beguiling heaven. Anon, anon, go as low as to the very underside of all ye fiends, down, down. Unto us all does she bring men out to happiness and into sorrow. Thereby goes the widening gyre. The centre shall not hold. We're reeling, she, straying parson's faithful mistress, as the wheel turns all the while treacherously down, down. Bear the brunt of your villainy. Let him beware ruin and all of him. Damn it, outrageous fortune. Gallop in your lascivious state, rejoice in what have you, down, down. I beweep my most untimely plight. My dreams have up and left, forgone all plain courtesy and died. That damned Lady Fortune's gone to hiding. Oft have I remarked how convincingly that great and distant dirge pledges to me a certain profession. The centre cannot hold. Renowned be thy grave, fear no more the reaping of good old fortune. Looked for that dame everywhere, amongst golden girls, ripened lovers, and what have you. It's all the same, for I cannot find her. Thereby goes that ruinous war drum down, down. Oh, 'tis most true. Aren't we all fortune's fools?